In this video, I'm going to give you a little tour of all of the books that I've buried in the ground and unearthed. So I want to walk through each one with you. I'll tell you a little bit about the materials I used and the story within the book, and hopefully it will inspire you to bury your own books and dig them back up. So this is one that I did that I used some secondhand linen. It was a linen curtain I found at a thrift store actually, and I dyed with some indigo, and I buried it in my yard for 30 days, and then I dug it back up. And I love how it subtly transformed. I don't know if you can see, there's just some marks from the dirt here. I attached a little stone. I love the back of that. That looks like a spine to me. Do you see that? I love that. Feels so nice. This is persimmon dyed Japanese sashiko thread there. And then this is a cotton sewing thread that I used on the front and the back here. Love it. And all these little tears came from it being in the earth. And that too came from being down there. And this one I dug up when it was pouring rain outside, and I decided to go out there without an umbrella or a raincoat. I just walked out barefoot. It was in the summer, and I dug up the book. It was actually buried with a second book, and then I was gonna bring it inside to wash off some of the mud because it was completely covered. And then I looked around my yard and noticed that there were these big puddles underneath a willow tree. And so I walked over there and submerged the books in the puddle as it was raining and I was soaking wet. And it felt so healing and beautiful. I started to cry. I felt this indescribable connection to the earth in a way that I had never felt before. I also felt like I was releasing emotions with the tears and with the rain. It was really amazing. So I loved that. Just happened intuitively, and I love that now all that earth energy is in the fibers of this book. And this is the second one that I buried with that one and dug up. So it was in the ground for 30 days as well. And this one was also some secondhand linen that I dyed with indigo. You can see how it really, when they're buried, they become very delicate, at least with the linen. And I never know what's going to happen when they're down there. So it's really a process of letting go and surrendering and releasing and collaborating with the earth. But I also find that it's, for me, very, very healing and therapeutic, is because I've been making these books as I've really been digging within myself and unearthing a lot of pain and a lot of things that needed attention and healing. So for me, my art has been mirroring that inner journey that I've been going on. This is some old wool yarn that someone gave me that I couched, and I love running my fingers over it. Love the back too. This is another one, also linen dyed with indigo. I use a lot of indigo. This one was also buried for 30 days in my yard. You can see more of the marks left. And these were some meditation beads that actually started out looking like this, and they're lotus seed beads, and when they were buried, I didn't know this would happen, but they started to decompose, and so they changed colors and they left marks over here. That was really interesting. Never know what's going to happen. And a few more. This is another one. This is one I buried under a cedar tree in the woods near my house. And this one was much more subtle. I find too, the transformations, the visible transformations, depend on how much rain is coming into the ground and how much tree covering there is if it is raining. And this one, it was pretty protected, but I also love just pondering, you know, it still absorbs the earth's energy and the energy of that cedar tree and the roots, even if I can't see it. So I like that too. And this one I washed in the lake down the street from my house after I dug it back up. And then this one I mailed off to someone in Canada who lives in a rainforest, and I had posted on Instagram about my buried book project, and which you can find out about in the class as well if you want to participate. It's free. It's really just a way to bury your book and then share it on Instagram if you want to see what others are doing as well. So I sent it to her, and she buried it in the rainforest for a few months, I think, and then mailed it back to me. And she sent me photos of it. It was so beautiful, right underneath these old growth trees. And then she washed it in a river. Oh, it was just so beautiful, and such a beautiful collaboration to do together with someone I had never met but connected with on the internet. You can see all these that all came from the earth. It's beautiful. I love that this kind of looks like code or something. And then what this fun surprise was that she added this page into the book. So I had just made these ones, and when she returned it, she had added her own page, which I loved. Added her energy into it as well. And then there have been some books that I've buried, and they've really decomposed a lot to the point where they are no longer in the book structure. Like this is one that these are two different books where that happened. This one I sent off to a friend in Australia, and it took a long time to get there because it was during the beginning of the pandemic or closer to that time when things were more restricted. And so it finally reached her, and she buried it for 30 days in her garden. And this is what happened. It was it was a bound multi-page linen book, similar to the other ones I showed you. And I was amazed, like the earth just, started to do what it does and started to disappear and decompose. And I love these fragments. I'm not sure what, I feel like I want to do something with them at some point, but that idea hasn't come yet. So I'm just letting them be like this. And I love them. And then this is also one that I buried in my yard under the willow tree that I mentioned earlier. And it was also out there for 30 days, and it started to fall apart and decompose more than the others, this one especially. So fascinating. And I love fragments. I mean, they feel like buried treasures. There's so much to ponder and explore there. And with these books too, I think about whatever was moving through me, the emotions and the thoughts as I was stitching, that all got released and maybe held by the earth, or maybe transmuted into new life. There's a lot there that I ponder and feel subtly with this process. And I have two more books I want to show you. These two are scrolls, so this is another format I love to work in. This is one that I buried in my yard, and this I made with 2 dish towels that I had block printed on some time ago, a few years ago, and I had kept around and decided to cut them up, and they were bright, crisp white before they were buried. And so for this one, I did multiple little kind of books within a book. And if you've watched the whole fabric meditation book online class, you've seen this book in my tour video of all of mine. But if you haven't seen that, I want to show it. I played with this is some madder root dyed hemp thread or twine. And with this one, I just decided to keep playing with fold outs as I went along. I didn't plan it out. I started towards that end, and then each time thought, what could I do differently now as I progress? I like this little flap. And I love the back again. I always love the back of the stitching. And it doesn't bother me that it folds up on itself and it wrinkles. It's all part of the story for me. And I love the scrolls because they're so intimate. They involve touch even more than the other books. They have these hidden stories within them that are only revealed when we touch them and interact with them. And then they become these really beautiful charged objects, I think, as they sit like this. And the scroll is such an ancient sacred format of communication. I love that. So that's one. And then the final one is this little one. So I made this one with some linen, and this is one I buried in my yard. Let me make sure I'm going. Yep. Okay. Let me make sure this was the top. So this one I decided to play with subtlety. So I used some white regular sewing thread and did the poetic stitching at the top. And then that led to a little path, a wandering path with couching. That's some hemp thread. And that led to a little poetic stitch, a poem maybe. And couching, which after I completed this, I felt like it reminded me a little bit of sound waves. And this reminded me of a river, like of currents. Some counting. Could be counting breaths or anything. And then I ended with a spiral couched at the bottom. Again, not planned out. This just evolved intuitively as I progressed down. So once I was done with this, I buried it for 30 days, and then I washed it in the lake down the street, and I rubbed it in the sand as I was washing it. So infused it with all of that healing energy as well. And I just love this process so much. So I hope that this inspired you to maybe bury some of your books, explore what burying or unearthing or digging might symbolize or mean for you, and what it might feel like to collaborate with the earth in this way and with such a powerful artist that is the earth. And feel free to share anything that you'd like to with me. I would love to hear and see what you're discovering.